Welcome to the Boneyard with Steve Robertson. As always, I am your good friend and host, Steve Robertson, here on the Maroon Friday edition of the Yard. Isn't it wonderful that we live in a country we can celebrate Maroon Friday as we choose? Hope you're wearing maroon today. It's always good to get out and rep the brand. We're Bulldogs. We should be proud of that fact. Had a lot to feel good about here the last couple years. The reality of it is that we need to identify ourselves, walk along, give each other a hell state. It's always important. I love having a chance to meet other Bulldog fans. You know, it's like you always feel like you're among friends, right? That's important. It's important to understand that. Before we get into the show, big announcement yesterday. Mississippi State extends women's basketball coach Sam Purcell. Back-to-back days, good news on the basketball front. Zach Selman had this to say. Sam Purcell is a winningest first-year coach in school history for a program that has a strong and storied tradition of success. He is one of the top rising star coaches in the country and has made an immediate impact through his expectations of excellence and his commitment to serving our student-athletes in their competitive academic and personal pursuits. I am thrilled to continue working with Sam as we build upon the success of Mississippi State women's basketball. Purcell said, "My family and I have fallen in love with Starkville, and who could blame him? And I am so honored to be your head women's basketball coach. I greatly appreciate our Director of Athletics, Zach Selman, and President Dr. Mark Keenum trusting and believing in me to lead this program for years to come. This extension directly reflects the hard work and countless hours that my staff, my team, have put in this past season. We work each and every day to make our fan base proud because without all of you, none of this would be possible. I took this job because women's basketball matters in Starkville, and I take the pride that you have in your program, our program, seriously. We are building something special here at Mississippi State, and my family and I are so proud to call Mississippi State home," end quote. So, I like the fact that we've taken care of this so quickly, right? I mean, it's not one of those things that you feel like it's emergent, but it's like, hey, it's good to see Zach Selman kind of handling business, right? You can take care of the men's coach. The next day you announce the women's coach extension. All that's important. And so congratulations to Sam Purcell and his family. Of course, ladies made a little racket this year in the postseason. And this is a roster, of course, that has been through it. They really have been. And kind of a hodgepodge in many respects. I'm eager to see what Sam Purcell can do once he gets his players in here. And that's the big thing kind of going forward. I believe we have the right coach. Just a matter of getting the right talent to fit that system. And we'll get back at competing for some big things. I do. And I remember, the moment for me where I really felt like, Sam Purcell was the guy. And there were a lot of good moments last year. But I felt maybe against Tennessee when we played them here. And we won that game in double overtime. And the calls were going against us. They were. And a lot of people were critical of Sam. Sam got a technical foul and ultimately allowed them to tie the game. But I think that he sent a message to our fans and to our players that we are here to fight. And fight we did. It's a big win. We haven't beaten Tennessee too many times in our history. And that was a ball game that clearly was not going our way. Despite the fact that we were outplaying them, it felt like the officials kept Tennessee in the ball game. And sometime you just got to say, hey, we're not going to put up with it. We're not going to put up with it. And I thought he sent a message to our team, hey, we are here to win. And if I got to get in trouble for us to win, then so be it. We get in the NCAA tournament. Of course, we win the play-in game with Illinois. That game really wasn't competitive. Then we drilled Creighton 81-66, and nearly knocked off number 3 Notre Dame, 3 Notre Dame. We lose that game by 5. And how special would that have been to get to the Sweet 16? But really good year, first year for Sam Purcell. Really first good year for Chris Jans. Probably, maybe both teams overachieved a little bit. I don't think any of us expected in the preseason for this Chris Jans team to make the tournament. I think we were hoping, but they did. And they really played with such effort. I mean, we only had the one big blowout, and that was on the road to Tennessee. We played exceptionally hard. On the women's side of things, like down the stretch there, I don't know that anybody really wanted to play us. I go back and think about that abysmal loss at Georgia. And the next thing you know, man, we rattle off 3 in a row. We lose a game at Missouri we had to have. We win a couple and lose down at Baton Rouge. The game was competitive for a while, but give the Tigers credit. They were an elite team. They won a national title. But in the second half of the SEC schedule, I don't know that anybody looked up and saw Mississippi State on the schedule and said, hey, it's going to be an easy W. And I think the best is yet to come on both sides of the men's and women's basketball side of things. And so, again, I'm excited. And you know how it is. It's like, in years past, there have been times where only men's basketball has been good. There have been times where only women's basketball has been good. There have been times when only baseball has been good. Times football has been good. But it's nice to be able to enjoy the full year of Mississippi State athletics and feel like, hey, we have a chance to win more times than not in every sport. So a really good year in most respects this year for Mississippi State athletics. Of course, baseball is still floundering. We talked about Scott Foxhall being terminated. And I've spoken to a couple people, closely affiliated with some of our players. And I'm told, of course, they're very sad because they all like Scott Foxhall. Scott is an amazing guy. He's an amazing guy. And I know Scott understands it. It's a business. I mean, when you take on the vocation of being a coach, you understand it. Everything is tied to winning and losing. It is. And when you're the assistant coach, you're often the first to go. It's usually the head coach is the last to go. Kind of like the manager, your boss, right? They're gonna give the manager, the person they're most invested in, the best opportunity to make it. It's how life works, But I wish Scott Foxhall the best, and I've been told that players are taking it pretty hard because they feel responsible. It's like now a guy that we really like a lot and we respect is out of a job because we hadn't got our job done. So I'm eager to see how we respond. Again, I understand we're going to do this kind of on a back committee approach. Lamonis is kind of managing, the pitching staff. He'll make those decisions. It's his program. It's, it's his responsibility. And Luke Hancock probably going to call a lot of the pitches. I think Luke will be behind the plate a lot more. Arkansas is not a team that runs it a lot. We're going to talk about Arkansas a lot after the first break in the show. Razorbacks are coming in here beat up, too. Maybe you hadn't paid attention. Arkansas actually 11-9 in their last 20 games. So just, 2 games over 500. They're ranked 6th in the country, but they have not been dominant as of late. And again, they're kind of beat up. So we're going to kind of talk about who's available, who's not available here in our preview shortly. Let's thank our friends at Bulldog Burger Company. I plan to get through there one day this weekend, maybe tomorrow. Be a good time. And in case you didn't know, Saturday's game is also a night game. So we're going to play tonight and tomorrow night under the lights at Duty Noble Field, so that maybe that gives you a chance to kind of get out and enjoy some Bulldog Burger Company. Maybe stop on your way into town. If you're coming up from Jackson, maybe stop there in the Ridge and Flowwood area. Go by and eat there. If you're coming in from the northeast, swing in the Tupelo location. Live music tonight. All the fun starts at 6 p.m. There at Bulldog Burger Company in Tupelo. Go by and enjoy some live music. Enjoy a great restaurant quality hamburger. Get the spring rolls as your appetizer. You'll be glad you did. It's nice they're doing some cool things there. On Friday night, a good way to end the week, man. A nice meal with friends or family, or both, and some live music. I'm a big proponent of live music. Matter of fact, let me think now. 9 days from now, I'll be seeing Bad Omens in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Really excited about that. And if you're coming to Starkville, or maybe you're spending the night in Starkville, go by the location there on University Drive. Have that Mississippi barbecue burger. I think that's a game changer for me in many respects. I really, really like that one. Yeah, they've made some new additions to the menu, right? That's the one thing I love about the crew at Bulldog Burger Company. It's never just a status quo, right? I can get my familiar favorites, but they're always trying something new. They're always trying to expand the selection there. I appreciate that and commend them on their efforts. I can tell you that, again, my youngest son works at Bulldog Burger Company. He can't wait to get to work every day. He's had some other jobs, and they felt like jobs, but he congregates with his coworkers. They get out and go to lunch together. They hang out. It's a family up there. It's what you'd expect it to be. I'm very proud to partner with a great organization like Bulldog Burger Company and the Eat With Us group And if you've got some college students up here that maybe need a night out, maybe you're the favorite aunt or uncle, go to the eatwithus.com, Eat With Us group, and maybe order a gift card and send it to them. Kind of unsuspecting. Send it to them. How many times, think about this, guys, how many times did you want to take a girl out for a nice meal and you didn't have money to do it? I was broke as a 10 Commandments as a college student. I don't know about you guys. But if somebody's like, hey, let me send you a gift card here for $100, go out and have a nice meal on me, whether I'm taking a friend or I'm going on a date, all of a sudden everybody had a better time, right? So maybe you do that. Maybe you hadn't considered that. We're getting to the end of the semester now, but maybe you've got some relatives that'll be here for the summer session, or maybe they live here year-round. Do something nice for them. Go to the eatwithus.com and order them one of those gift cards, and they can eat it. They can eat at Bulldog Burger Company or any of the family of restaurants. That's a great, great idea. It really is. Bulldog Burger Company, the place where people go to meet. M-E-A-T. All right, let's jump into Arkansas here. The Razorbacks have won 8 of the last 9 against Mississippi State. And that stinks. It does. You remember that 2021 year, right? When they came in here and smacked us around? It was tough. I remember us dropping a pop-up, too, in that second game. We had a chance to win the game. We basically let them back in the ball game because of our own ineptitude defensively. And we were a good defensive team that year, but that was not a good day. But all that said, they've had our number. They have, and Dave Van Horn is a fantastic coach. I respect the fact that, especially with all the injuries they've had, they've had some big ones. They're 33-12 overall, 14-7 in the conference. And you look at this team and you say, hey, is there a big leaguer on this team? I don't think there is. I think it's just a lot of good quality college players that are working hard. There's some guys who will get drafted and get to the minors, but there's nobody you look at. You look in years, recently, you look at some Arkansas players, say, hey, that guy's a big leaguer. I don't know that I feel that way about this team, which makes the job that Dave Van Horn has done the more remarkable. It's not a star-laden team. It's not. They have been outstanding at home, 28-3 on the year. You'd expect that. It's an incredible atmosphere. We'll go up there next year. They do a great job up there. They really do. But they're 3-7 in true road games and 2-2 on neutral sites. So 5-9 away from Baum Stadium. They opened up the year in the college baseball showdown out there at Globe Life Field. They take care of Texas 3-2. And Texas is underachieving. They get absolutely drilled by TCU 18-6 in game 2, and then they respond and just absolutely destroy Oklahoma State 18-1. So they win a couple of games out there at Globe Life Field. We know what a good event that is. We were out there in 21. Really, really well-run event. And Arkansas, obviously, kind of geographically a good fit for them there in Arlington. We'll go out there, too. We got a lot of good Bulldogs out there in DFW. But a 2-1 start to the season. And then they rattle off, a ton here. They knock off Grambling. They get Eastern Illinois 2 out of 3. They lose the Sunday game 12-3. That's a little bit of an outlier right there. You'd say, well, how does that happen? Because they absolutely destroyed EIU in games 1 and 2. It was 13-2 in 7 innings. They win 10-3 and then lose 12-3. They get Illinois State in the midweek. That was an 11-inning game. Had to walk that off. They sweep Wright State. They get Army. They get Louisiana Tech in a 3-game series. And Tech is a solid mid-major. It is. UNLV goes in for a couple midweek games. The Razorbacks get both of those. They open up SEC play with a sweep of Auburn in Fayetteville. And the games really weren't that competitive. 7-2, 9-3, 5-0. They get Southeast Missouri in 7 innings on a Tuesday, 12-2. They go down to Baton Rouge, and we knew, hey, this is a big one here, right? 9-3-10. They get Skeens on Friday, and they explode late in that ball game, put up a ton of runs, and win 9-3. You don't see scores that lopsided very often in extra innings. Then they get 10-run ruled on Saturday, 12-2. It happens to everybody. It's not just us. And then they lose 14-5 on Sunday. I guess game 3 was a doubleheader on Saturday. But the Tigers take the series, and at the time, to the tiebreaker against Arkansas. They bounce back and 10-run rule Omaha, 16-3. And then they lose a Friday night game at home to Alabama, who's been in the headlines here as of late, in case you didn't know. and they absolutely destroyed them, 12-1. Goodness gracious. Arkansas bounces back, wins the Saturday and Sunday games 9-6, 5-4. Arkansas State game is canceled. They travel to Ole Miss. They take 2 or 3 from the Rebels, and at the time that seemed like a pretty big deal, even though Ole Miss was struggling a little bit. This was a big loss early in the SEC slate for the Rebels. Arkansas, a doubleheader on Friday. They split that 11-2 and then lose 7-4, and in Saturday game 3 they win 6-4. Arkansas Little Rock has been a pretty solid team this year. And they get them 21-5 on Tuesday and then bounce back, and as do the Rams, or Trojans, and they win 11-4. So Arkansas splits a pair with Little Rock, and Little Rock nearly beat Ole Miss earlier this week. Then Tennessee comes to town, and this is when I think people realize, hey, Arkansas has been good. And this weekend they played great. They got Tennessee in there. They go 5-2, 6-3, 7-2, and sweep the Volunteers, which we felt like put the Volunteers in a bit of a free fall. Then they bounce back and sweep Vanderbilt, Mississippi State, right? All right, Arkansas gets Central Arkansas, and then they go on the road. And this is one of the things when injuries begin to mount up is what happens. You have a bad weekend, and they did. They went to Georgia, lose 6-5, 7-3, and 9-8. All 3 very competitive games, especially games 1 and 3. But all of a sudden, that brought Arkansas back to the pack in the SEC West. They still maintained a top 10 ranking, and Georgia was really struggling at the time, kind of found something then. Missouri State then goes into, Arkansas goes to Springfield, Missouri, and Missouri State gets them 8-4. So a 4-game losing streak there as of late. They bounce back and take all 3 from A&M, 7-5, 10-4, 8-7. I don't know what to make of this A&M team. I just think they're a good team. I don't think they're a great team by any stretch. And then this weekend, in 11, our friends, the Bison of Lipscomb, go into Fayetteville and win 8-6. And you may not know this, but Arkansas needed some help from Lipscomb to stay in the ball game. They scored 2 runs on wild pitches. And those runs count, don't get me wrong. But it's not like they went up there and just knocked the Bison pitching staff around. They play that game in North Little Rock at Dickey Stevens Park. And Lipscomb with the win there. And really good crowd there. So Arkansas has announced, much like us, that they are going to be TBA most of the weekend. Our thing comes out and people are like, oh, why are we TBA? Well, we don't know what we're going to do. I mean, what if we have to use Colby Holcomb tonight? Now, if Cade Smith can give us 6, then maybe Holcomb is your Saturday starter. But, if Cade can give you 4, you may have to go to Colby tonight, which will eliminate him from starting on Saturday. We're not exactly sure where Gart is right now. It's like, Gartman, of course, missed a week in the rotation, came back last week, was pretty good. Wasn't great, was pretty good. Is he available this weekend? We don't know. What do you do? I don't know. But looking inside the numbers here, this Arkansas team, again, nothing really jumps off the page at you. I mean, honestly, that's the thing. Again, they're just winning baseball games. It's not one of these situations you look at and say, hey, they're great at this. They're not really good offensively. They're not. Now, as a team, they're hitting .283. But here's what's interesting about that. So they're going to be short a few players this weekend. Maybe you're aware of this, maybe you weren't. And so let me pull it up for you right here. Okay. So Jared Wagner, a transfer in, a guy that's hitting .351, the second leading hitter on the team, he's out with a thumb injury. Not expected to play this weekend. I guess he could maybe have pinch hit situations if he's feeling good, but they don't expect him to play. Tavion Josenberger, not expected to get him back until the postseason. He's a third leading hitter on the team at .322, has 7 tanks. And Wagner's got a dozen home runs that leads the team. And then there's Peyton Stovall, who has really struggled at the plate as of late. Some of that, they believe, is connected to a shoulder injury. They finally just decided to kind of shut him down. He's hitting .253, but he's got 5 tanks. And his numbers have dipped in SEC play, and a lot of it, I believe, is attributed to that injury. All right, so 3 of your regular starting 9 are out. And this is a team that's hit 68 home runs and then 24 of those jacks no longer in the order. So you begin to think, okay, what does that mean, Steve? Well, it means basically that Jace Burrowfin, who has been outstanding for them, not going to have the same level of protection behind him. I think one of my favorite kids on this team is Kendall Diggs. I really like him a lot. 312 on the year, 8 jacks, got 1 triple to his credit, 42 ribbies, which second on the team. Kid can really play. But now all of a sudden you start working through these numbers here and you start thinking, okay, well, where does the offense come from? Now you've got some guys, obviously, like Peyton Holt, not probably expected to play third base. And then there's Harold Cole, will probably play at second. He's hitting 257. He's got 3 jacks. But there's a reason those guys are playing behind the starters. If they were as good or better than the starters, they would be playing. So, again, kind of a beat-up team here. And Stovall's a guy that it seems like Peyton Stovall has been there a long time. Really does. I mean, he's a very, very solid fielder for them. And one thing is you look at these numbers, too. This is a team that doesn't run it exceptionally well. 40 of 55 in stolen bases this year. That is not a good percentage by any stretch. And then Josenberger is out. He's a leading base stealer at 9 and 12 on the year. Peyton Stovall's 3 for 4. He's out. And so Wagner's 3 for 3. So all of a sudden, some of your more prolific base stealers, if you could use that label, no longer on the base pass. And I think that opens some things up for Luke. I think you can feel, you know how it was early in the year, man. It's like a walk is a double, right? It's not like that now. We're doing a better job of holding runners. We're doing a better job controlling the running game. And this is a team that really doesn't like to run a ton of bases. But also, too, this is a team that doesn't get a ton of extra base hits. And so I think you go out there and you throw strikes and you don't give them free base runners, you got a chance to win the series. I'm not expecting that. I didn't pick it that way. I've got State losing 2-1 because I just don't have any faith in this bullpen. And maybe with Nate Dome being back, that'll give us an opportunity here because you got to string this thing together. You got to win the game today. We wrote a song about that. Win the game today. But this is an Arkansas lineup that, from an average standpoint, pretty decent. But with that, we consider extra base hits, really not. The power numbers are just okay, And then the fact, too, that you take Wagner out of the lineup, it's a much different deal. So they got to kind of piece this thing together. Now, that's not to say that Arkansas doesn't have some depth. They absolutely do. They do. And I do expect them to win the series, but I think it's going to be a competitive series. And I won't be the least bit surprised if we show back up here on Monday and we're talking about State found a way to upset the number 6 team in the country and take 2 out of 3. I won't be the least bit surprised because I think there's just a lot of unknowns and a lot of question marks about this Arkansas team health-wise right now. And some of the bigger issues are on the mound. Jackson Wiggins is a guy. That guy's a dude, man. He is. And you found out before the season he was done for the year. Of course, he was expected to be a weekend guy for them. And again, you hate it, man. You hate it for any kid. You do. It's not like tweaking a shoulder, in 2 to 3 weeks you come back. When you get a UCL, sometimes it's a 2-year deal. And recovery time is 12 to 15 months, and you hate it, man. You only get a short time in life to play baseball. You get a short time in college to show Major League Baseball scouts what you can do, and then you're losing, a year and a half to 2 years, and then sometimes it takes a little while to round back into shape. And so you hate it, man, because these could be life-changing type injuries for these pitchers. You hate to see anybody get hurt, but to see a guy lose, a good bit of his eligibility on something like that, it's terrible. It is. And it's like you look at it and you want to assign blame somewhere, and it's just kind of part of our game right now. We got to find a way to do a better job. We got to do some things differently. We do. Cody Frank, also done for the year. His is a lat injury, from what I understand. He only had 6 appearances this year with a 3.09 ERA, but he was the guy they expected to kind of be a bullpen piece for them. He's done. And then they announced earlier this week, and man, you absolutely hate this, man. Dylan Carter, perhaps the best middle to long reliever Arkansas has, done for the year. Tommy John. And I read a report yesterday. They said initially they thought he was okay, put him back out there. Then they did the dye test, and they found it. Torn UCL. It's terrible, man. And Dylan Carter was 6-0 on the year. All of those wins came in relief. He hadn't started a game yet. Also had a couple of saves. Allows right at a hit per inning, but we're not going to see him. So he's done for the year. And then there's some discussion about Hunter Holen. What's he going to do? He's had 11 starts. He's TBA this weekend. There's talk that he may not be able to go this weekend. So then somebody else has to move up. Brady Tigert opened. It was the opener last week. Brady was a guy early in the year they feared might be a Tommy John casualty too. And then they said, oh, no, he just needs some rest. They just started bringing him back. He's only got 5 appearances on the year. That guy's a dude, man. He tied us up last year in Fayetteville. A guy from Mississippi, too. A guy that grew up a Razorback fan, too. A lot of people are like, oh, we must get every kid. It'd be like my kid, growing up in Baton Rouge and choosing Mississippi State over LSU. I mean, you're going to go where your heart is, right? But this is a pitching staff that is really, to be honest with you, had more significant injuries than the Mississippi State pitching staff. And I would venture to say, too, these guys, to a man, probably a little more talented than what we have. We have some young guys who are going to be dudes for us. But, this is an Arkansas team that is really beat up. Now, we know for sure we're going to see Hagen Smith and I be battling the Smiths. Cade Smith versus Hagen Smith. And that's all that anybody's announced is Cade versus Hagen Smith. Hagen Smith, 2.64 ERA, 6-1 on the year, 12 appearances, 6 of them starts, got a couple of saves, leads the regulars with the exception of Holland. I guess he's third on the team, with 47 and 2/3 innings pitched and 31 hits, so well less than a hit per inning. Walks 27. That's a bit of a concern for him. 71 strikeouts, so he's less than 3-1. He is a guy too that will challenge hitters. He wants you to put the ball in play, but opponents hitting just $187 against him. It's a guy that's getting under barrels and getting soft contact. And we'll kind of see how things go. Cody Adcock's got 6 starts under his belt. Will McIntyre has 13 starts under his belt. McIntyre's a guy that among the regular starters has probably struggled the most. 13 appearances this year, 10 starts, a 5.82 ERA, 55.2 innings pitched. He's allowing over a hit per inning and has given up 17 home runs. I had to double check the number. 17 home runs, and opponents are hitting 288 against him. So do you trot him out there? We're an offensive team. You challenge us, we'll do our best to hit it out of the yard. But this is an Arkansas team that's allowed 62 home runs this year. Their opponents have allowed just 68, and the fact that they're all playing most of those games at Baum, you would think would favor Arkansas. But, again, you get in this bullpen, it's going to be a bit of an adventure. One of the guys, Gage Wood, we'll see him. And usually you see him when they're tied or have a lead. 1-0 on the year, 17 appearances, got 4 saves, 21 innings pitched, 33 strikeouts, 15 walks. But, yeah, this is not a pitching staff you look at and just, this lights you up here. And you look at these numbers and you begin to think to yourself, man, how is Arkansas in the position they're in? They got great leadership. They got a great coach. They got a guy that knows, we're going to focus on today. We're going to find a way to win the game today. And again, you look at this, there's not a star, the guy that just jumps off the page at you and you say, you know what, hey, this is the dude. Beauford's probably the closest. Brady Slavin's a guy that's kind of been up and down a bit. He's had some big games in Starkville. He had a big home run against us last year. Big left-handed guy there. Got to be careful with him. But again, you go up and down this order. Just a good, solid college baseball team led by a legendary coach. Just find a way to win games. But you know what? We've had that team coming here before, and we found a way to get it up. And, again, they haven't been good on the road. It's amazing to look up and see that away from home, they've only played 10 road games this year. 10. How will they handle you all? It's one thing when you got 10, 12,000 people cheering for you. What do you do when they're cheering against you? Well, in 21, they came in here and showed us we don't care. I remember they smacked Christian McLeod early in that first inning. We were thought, oh, holy smokes, what have we gotten ourselves into? So I do expect a very, very competitive series. And if State can go out there and throw strikes and keep the ball in the yard, We got a chance to win this series. And I don't just say, well, we're going to play the game, so yeah, there's a chance you may win. I think when you consider the fact that maybe State is kind of getting healthy and Arkansas is not, it's probably a good time to play those guys, and we're playing them in our yard. I think if you can find a way to get a split and get to Sunday, you got a chance to take this series. I don't expect that to happen. I don't. But if you win tonight, man, the rest of the weekend could set up really well for you. Absolutely could. But I know this about Arkansas. They will come in with a great approach. They'll have a great game plan offensively to attack our pitchers. They'll know our tendencies. And so I think that's one of the things that you look at and say probably favors them. But then there's the X factor. You got a completely different guy calling pitchers now. And so all of the tendencies, for the most part, are kind of out the window. I mean, yes, Cade Smith still has the same stuff. Cade Smith's a guy that likes to get ahead in counts. Cade's a guy that likes to throw first pitch fastballs, right? That's on him. But when you work deeper in the counts, when Foxhall's been making all the pitching selections, now all of a sudden he's not. So now your scouting report kind of has an asterisk next to it. Well, this is what they usually do. So it'll be interesting. Again, how Mississippi State attacks these Arkansas hitters. That, hey, they're good at putting the ball in play, but they haven't had maybe the power numbers that you would expect from this Arkansas team. So again, nothing. Again, you look at this Arkansas team, you just hang your hat on other than toughness, man. They just, some talent and toughness. And we got to be prepared to be tougher than them. All right, time for today's Top 10 list. As always, brought to you by closewithblair.com. That's C-L-O-S-E with Blair, B-L-A-I-R.com. Blair is a guy you can be confident in because Blair has seen it all and done it all. Blair is a mortgage professional, 22 years of experience, back-to-back-to-back. Top 1% close ratios in the country. Maybe you're an atypical borrower. Maybe you got a non-conforming property. Maybe there's something out there. Or maybe it's the reverse. Maybe you got atypical property and you're a non-conforming borrower. Get my nomenclature right. But Blair is a guy, obviously, that knows what he's doing. He's a Bulldog, too, through and through. Has a place here in Starkville. Season ticket holder in multiple sports. Come out and be a part of this, man. If you are a person that needs to refinance, maybe perhaps get a HELOC, or maybe you just, the dream of home ownership has eluded you. There's nobody that's going to serve you better than Blair Chandler. Mention to him, you heard about him on the Boneyard. He's going to pay for your appraisal. It's about a $500 value. Let me give you the digits. 601-500-2344. Again, 601-500-2344. That's closewithblair.com. All right. I got to thinking, and thank you so much for your pet peeves, too. I had some people reach out, too, and say, pet peeves. And, one of the things, and I guess it kind of goes without saying, can't stand people that chew with their mouth open. Can't stand people that pop their knuckles all the time, and that's me. I'm constantly doing that. I'm always at a computer, Here we go. There you go. Always having to pop my knuckles, right? And things like that, And somebody else brought up to me, about long lines at gas stations. I don't know how we fix that. I know we can adequately staff the gas station, right? I did have some people that said, Steve, I feel just like you do when I'm walking through the store and people just stop in front of me without warning. It's like I just want to put a brake light on them or something, or a blinker. But we're all living a collective experience here where we all inconvenience each other in some respects, for sure. Today it's a little different, though. We're going to stick with a theme, though, in honor of the Razorbacks coming in. And I don't mean this derogatory about them, okay? Please don't. So I'm sure there's some Arkansas fans listening to the show on the way down here. I'm not taking a shot at Arkansas. But they're the Hogs. They're the Pigs. So we're going to have our top 10 songs about pigs. How'd that be, right? Our pig-related items. No bacon on this show. I do enjoy bacon, though. Nice crispy bacon. I love it. But no bacon songs. Even though I guess there was also the great Promise album, Pork Soda, right? That's not included. All due respect to Les Claypool. Okay, so here are songs about pigs. Top 10. You didn't think that was coming, did you? You did. We did the Rock of Arkansas a while back. We love Evanescence. Who knew that we had such a gothic beauty from Little Rock, Arkansas named Amy Lee that would put together just an amazing band with Ben Moody and Evanescence, right? They didn't make the list either. but my favorite band did. And this is a song off of my least favorite Motley Crue album. And I'll tell you one of the reasons why. Number one, and I know that I'm in the minority. I'm perfectly okay with it. I like what I like. You can like what you like and dislike what you dislike. I will never be that music snob. I mean, I got some choice things to say about Green Day and Nirvana. It's funny how that works. But anyway, I love what you love, man. I mean, life is short, death is certain. Find something you enjoy. I love Motley Crue. You guys know I have a leg sleeve. My lower right leg is all Motley Crue. So Motley Crue, Generation Swine. The album was very disjointed. There's a couple reasons why. The self-titled album with John Corabi as a singer is great. It is great. And people say, yeah, but it's not Motley because it's not Vince. And then the same people go on and criticize Vince for being overweight, not being able to sing all the words. I'm just happy they're out still playing. Still happy. My favorite band is still, I can bring my kid and go watch him play live, right? And there's a new album being recorded. So I'm excited about that. I can go watch the Dirt if I want to. But Corabi, I love John Corabi when he was with the Scream. And, of course, after he left Motley, he was with Bruce Kulick and Union. And those are really good albums, too. And I had a chance to meet and visit with John here several months back over in Huntsville. And ended up running his merch table for him. Was happy to do that. What a great guy. And I think John was kind of unfairly maligned and blamed for a lot in Motley Crue. It's not John Corabi's fault that they fired Vince Neil. And then they bring in John Corabi, who, if you can get your hands on the Screams album, Let It Scream, it is amazing. I absolutely love that album from start to finish. I do. And every so often it'll pop up on iTunes for like a month and it's gone again. I have the hard copy CD. You can find it on YouTube as well. But nevertheless, Corabi joins Motley. They put that self-titled album together. Probably my favorite song on that, besides Hooligan's Holiday, is Till Death Do Us Part. And so they were in the process of writing and recording Generation Swine. They fire Corabi. Elektra basically says, hey, you got to bring Vince back. They work it out. They fire Corabi, even though he had done nothing wrong. The record company's like, hey, fans are just not supporting his version of Motley Crue. You got to go back. And it's never been the same since then. We've had some high moments, but it's never been the same. So the problem was with Generation Swine is that a lot of these tracks were written with Nikki Sixx and John Corabi, and they were written with Corabi's voice in mind. And Vince comes back, and as much as I love Vince, his voice is a little bit whiny compared to Corabi. And so the album comes off very disjointed. I rarely ever listen to this album. Rarely. It just never crosses my mind like, hey, I want to hear Generation Swine. It's like, when Motley pretended to be a cover band of the Sex Pistols, right? It's like we're trying to be punk. And it just didn't work. The fans didn't accept it. There's really not a lot on this album that's remarkable. But Generation Swine, the title cut, is your number 10 song. Number 9, we're going across the pond here. And this is an alternative band with a British flair to them that maybe you're familiar with, maybe you're not. But pretty interesting track here from them. We Are the Pigs from the London Suede. Most people just call them Suede. Had some hits, been in the mid-90s. Animal Nitrate was a track, but they're still out there touring. They haven't recorded a new album in a long time. Much different, of course, than the Motley album, but the London Suede, huge following, too. Huge following. And maybe you're unfamiliar with them, but again, this is kind of an eclectic list here. We're going to kind of jump around a little bit, but that's a band, too. If you're looking to kind of get back into something maybe you're not as familiar with when you're out on the road, and maybe put on Suede or the London Suede Essentials. They're on Apple Music. Just maybe ride for a while. I think you'll like some of that stuff. It's not as heavy and as edgy as I like it, but they're interesting. Speaking of interesting and eclectic, Queens of the Stone Age. It's Run Pig Run. Of course, Queens of the Stone Age, very interesting band. They'll just change in the middle of a song, completely change everything, the tone, the timing, everything. And of course, Dave Grohl went out for a while and toured with those guys as drummer. Number 7, I'm going to give you the parental advisory sticker right here. If you're listening to this list in your car and you got kids, you probably want to skip this one. It's our friend Be Real and Cypress Hill with pigs, and that, of course, is about police officers. There is some language in there that many people will find offensive. I'm just going to tell you that now. They will. But it is an interesting track, and it fits our theme for the day. But I don't know if you could play. I don't know if they could perform or release a song these days. It's like we talk about we've become more progressive as a society, but we're a lot more sensitive too. So there's an interesting juxtaposition there. Am I free or am I not? Am I more free today than I was 10 years ago, or am I less free today? It's like, well, you can say whatever you want to say, as long as it doesn't hurt my feelings. Because I'm a delicate little flower, right? I'm going to say what I want to say. All right, number 6. I got a good friend of mine that'll be excited that his favorite band of all time made the list. It's the Beatles and the track Piggies from the White Album. And if you don't know the White Album, young people, then that's an indictment on your parents. You should know the White Album, one of the most iconic albums of all time. All right, number 5, another classic band that hasn't been on this show a lot, but they're going to make an appearance today. From the album Animals, it's Pink Floyd's Pigs. The 3 of them, I think is what the subtitle was. But, of course, this is basically about, rich people and, you're casting your pearls before swine and things of that nature. There's a thematic influence in this album. And Pigs is one of the better songs on the Animals album. So I think it fits not only the motif, but it's worthy of inclusion. Number 4, a song that's been on the top 10 list before. We did a top 10, and this is the first single off the iconic album, The Downward Spiral, from 9 Inch Nails. I'm a huge 9 Inch Nails fan. If you're not, I encourage you to give them an opportunity. It's a much different, aggressive, angry type deal, but in my mind, Trent Reznor is a modern-day composer. He is also in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, deservedly so. But the fact that Motley and Soundgarden and Iron Maiden are not in, I would trade Trent for them, for sure. All right, 9 Inch Nails' March of the Piggies. And again, it's the same thing. It's a lot of it's about the media. A lot of it's about, maybe people that have mistreated you in the past. But it is a very aggressive song that has some unique sampling on it. And Trent's one of those guys, too, that's always looking to find something to kind of make the sound a little more unique. All right, number 3. It's Jane's Addiction. That's right, Perry Farrell, Dave Navarro, and the guys there. Jane's Addiction, been around for a long time. They still do some shows from time to time. Of course, Perry Farrell was the founder of Lollapalooza. It's a wonderful thing, and we didn't do anything like that. There were no festivals of any note until the early 90s. It's a much different dynamic these days. Seems like there's a festival every weekend. But we're going with Jane's Addiction's Pigs and Zen. I think it's one of Perry Farrell's shining moments. Very unique voice from Perry Farrell. Number 2, this song has been on here before. The video was kind of a claymation, animation type thing. And it wasn't just the video that set it apart, but it certainly gave the song some juice when it was released. It's Green Jelly's 3 Little Pigs. They were originally called Green Jello, and of course the people that manufactured Jello didn't like that. So Green Jelly's 3 Little Pigs, and it's kind of a modernized version of the classic nursery rhyme. And if you go back and watch that video, you'll see how silly we all were. We thought that was really cool. I still think it's interesting. Maybe it's just a bit of nostalgia with me. But 3 Little Pigs from Green Jelly. But number 1, and to me, there could be no other choice. It's Black Sabbath's War Pigs. The greatest song ever about pigs. And it's also an anti-war song. And I'm anti-war too. But I understand that that's part of accountability. That's part of living on a planet. When people do things like come and fly airplanes into your buildings, you have a duty to respond to protect your citizens and to teach other people, what, this is not the way to go. And so I understand war is part of it. And I understand the whole misnomer of fighting for peace. I get it. I understand every bit of that. But the problem is that there are evil people in the world that would choose to do us harm. And that's not to say that America is completely blameless in that. We've done some things in the name of, the American way that are pretty despicable too. And so this is kind of what the song is about. It's about these war pigs. Generals gathered in black masses, just like witches. Our generals gathered in their masses. I sing a song karaoke, and I can't even get it right. But it's Black Sabbath's War Pigs, and of course, it's a elongated song with a lot of instrumental parts in it too. But everybody knows it. Wherever you go, wherever you're from, everybody knows the song War Pigs. That's number one for me. Top 10 songs about pigs, hogs, swine, anything related to do with the porcine species. That's my top 10. You may have an idea. It's different than mine. That's okay. I'm not married to this list. I just thought it would be interesting considering our opponents this weekend. And again, no disrespect to Arkansas. A lot of respect for Arkansas baseball, truly. And if you're coming to Starkville, please come enjoy your time. Be safe. And go eat at Bulldog Burger Company when you're in town. You'll be glad you did. And if you can't get in there, go to one of the other Eat With Us restaurants. You'll have a great time. Harvey's, The Grill. A lot of good places to eat here in Starkville, for sure. If you have an idea for the top 10 list, reach out, let me know. You can find me on all forms of social media at Scout Steve R. And you can find Roy, the keeper of the list, at Dogmatic67, DAWGMATIC67. And you can find our great list on Spotify under that same handle. And just give Roy a follow, right? And that way our list will just kind of auto-populate. And so when you're looking for something, because you know how it is, you get tired. It's like, I've listened to the same thing over and over again. And you kind of need something to kind of change you up a little bit. We're here to serve, man. Putting these great lists together now for you for, over 3 years now. And I want to thank Roy for doing that. Very appreciative of that. And our buddy Gordon Griffin went back too, and went back and put those lists together on Spotify because the first several we didn't do anything with. And then Gordon, of his own volition, said, hey, let me help because I know other fans want this stuff. And you'd be amazed how many times somebody hits me up wanting to find the list. Hey, Steve, have you done this? Okay, well, yeah, we have. Oh, can you send it to me? And I go find it for them. Sometimes I have time, sometimes I don't. But it's been nice that Roy's been able to put those things together for us. All right, congratulations to all the Mississippi State folks that are finishing up finals. I know next weekend's graduation. I know it is for us. I know we'll graduate. Mia will graduate next Friday. Got family coming into town, which means I got to clean up around here. My standard of living is much different when my wife is home than it is when she's not. But the reality of it is a lot of you have worked exceptionally hard. And now you're about to go out of the workforce. And I just want to congratulate you and your families. It is a shared accomplishment. Even though you're the person that will walk across the stage, I can tell you, not much has made me happier in life than seeing my children walk across the stage and earn their college degree because I don't have one. And maybe someday I will. Maybe I'll go back and get it. We'll see. But I can tell you, as great as it is for you, and you are the center of attention, right? You have earned it. You're the one that stayed up late, you sacrificed, and it's incredible. It is. But I can tell you, even if your parents don't have the words to say it, maybe they're not as articulate as me, maybe they're not as open or as emotional as me, I can tell you, as a parent, and I know that I speak on behalf of all parents, it's a very, very huge moment in our lives to see our children graduate from college. It is. It really is. High school, hey, it's a big deal at the time. It is. But it's almost a given, right? It's much different going to college. It's much different. And so I want you to understand not only what you have done for yourself to make yourself more employable moving forward, but the gift you have given your parents. And yes, they may have helped pay for all this. Maybe you got student loans. I don't know. But I can tell you, if your parents are in your life, and I hope they are, and I hope they're supportive, it won't be just about you to them. They will, of course, the focus will be on you, but the gift that you have given them is something that you can't even put a price tag on. All right, next segment of the show is always brought to you by Campus Bookmart. Campus Bookmart, a Starkvillian institution, doing an amazing job for a long time. Neatly butted up on the backside of campus. You can swing through there and do all of your Mississippi State shopping on your way to the ball game. You don't have to be worried about being late. Not that big a town, but it's nice that it's so conveniently located. Go by and see their smiling faces. If you can't make it to town, I encourage you to visit them on the World Wide Web at campusbookmart.net. And by being a loyal Boneyard listener, we'll give you a phrase that pays. That is BSR, which stands for Beautiful Steve Robertson. Please support them. You're doing yourself a favor. You're also supporting a starkable business. Listen, I do a lot of business on Amazon. I do. But when I can buy local, I always do. I always buy local. I get all of my Mississippi State merchandise at Campus Bookmart. I encourage you to do the same. All right, let's look around the league. Interesting couple of days since we have been together. We'll go back, and there was just the one game. I guess we talked about it yesterday. On Wednesday, South Carolina takes care of Winthrop. But last night, a couple of series got underway. I won't say that it was a surprising result here, but Alabama all over Vanderbilt 11-2. And the fact that Alabama went out there and played, it's kind of this us against the world mentality. We'll talk a little bit about this Coach Bohannon thing a little bit. Of course, a few details are getting out there. I don't know what can be believed at this point, but the suggestion that is out there is that Coach Brad Bohannon instructed somebody to bet against his team in a game that he was coaching. And I don't know if we have had many violations of integrity that exceed that one. To encourage somebody to bet against your team in a game that you're coaching, where you can impact the game, and you pull your Friday starter, and you know what, the guy may have been hurt. They said he had some tightness in his back. Maybe he did. And they threw a guy that hadn't pitched since March the 16th. LSU got out to an 8-1 lead. Alabama came roaring back and made the thing awfully interesting. But it's pretty egregious what is being alleged. And it is a black eye for our sport and certainly for Alabama athletics. It has had all kinds of problems here in the last several months, as you guys are aware. But good for the kids, because that's the thing. Yesterday, Pete Thamel and Kendall Rogers both attributing to sources that it does not appear that any players were involved in this. And that's a relief. It's still a very, very serious and negative situation. And the thing you got to wonder about here, too, is there a criminal component to this? I mean, when you look at the history of the NCAA, when there have been point-shaving incidents, and those have mainly been in men's basketball, there has been a legal case on the criminal side of things. And you begin to ask yourself, if you bet against your team, did you do anything to ensure that the bet was covered and that your team lost the game? And so, last night, Greg Burns on the field congratulating the players, big 11-2 game, Pickney with a grand slam, and Alabama just kind of, jumped all over Vanderbilt pitching. Of course, later in that ball game, you're trying to manage a weekend. You're not throwing premium arms once there's separation in the game. But Alabama, doing what they need to do. And it's been interesting, too, to see so many of the Alabama fans that maybe are just kind of casual fans of baseball kind of rally around this team here in the last 24 hours. A very, very, very negative and very serious situation. I'm eager to see what we learn. The report yesterday from ESPN was that apparently the phone records suggest that the gentleman making the bet, or the individual making the bet, was on the phone with Brad Bohannon, who was getting ready to coach a baseball game. I don't know what we can draw from that. I don't know what's going on in Coach Bohannon's life. I have no clue, and nor do many of us. But this is one of those situations here you look at and you say, you know what, that this is as bad as it gets. That you've got a coach betting against his team, or in some way instructing someone else, and you don't know if he was part of the proceeds, if he benefited from that in some way. I don't know that at this point. I don't think anybody does. We'll get some things here in the weeks to come, I'm sure. But it's terrible. I can't begin to imagine a greater sin than betting against your team or instructing somebody else to do it and then going out there and coaching the game and then you lose. Now, granted, with Paul Skeens on the mound, there's a good chance LSU was going to win anyway. And I haven't gone back and looked at the box score, watched the game or anything like that, and see if there was any questionable moves late in that ball game. that aided in LSU's win. I don't know. But I do know I love college baseball. This is a sad day for college baseball. All right, Missouri, they take care of your Rebels. Missouri, obviously your second favorite team this weekend, being Mississippi State, and then whoever's playing Ole Miss. And we really need a split here, right? If we're going to have a chance to make Hoover for whatever that's worth, we don't need either of these teams to sweep because wins are going to be tough to come by for us. Ole Miss jumps out to a 5-0 lead. I was watching the game, and after McCants hit that home run to push Ole Miss up 5, I said, I think I'm done watching this. Missouri battles back to get 2 in the bottom of 4, and then Ole Miss takes it back out to 7-2, and then gets as far ahead as 9-2 in the 6th. And then Missouri with 6 runs. In the bottom of the 6th to make it a game, they get 1 in the 7th, and then hit a 2-run jack in the 8th. To go ahead. They tie it in the 7th, take the lead in the 9th, then they close it out to win 11-9. Very interesting. And we know what it's like. I told you guys I didn't know what the wind patterns look like, but the wind is typically blowing out to right. Seemed like it was blowing out everywhere last night because there were a lot of home runs in this ball game. Gonzalez with 1, McCants with 1, Kemp Alderman with 1, and then Missouri. Mann has 2, Morris has 1, Bargo with 1, Garcia with 2. So a ton of home runs hit last night. Rivas went on Friday. He's been their regular Saturday starter. He goes 5 1/3 and then allows 4 runs, 8 Ks and 3 walks, allowed a couple of jacks. They bring in Riley Maddox, and he doesn't get anybody out. They bring him in the 6th, in that big decisive 6th inning that allowed Missouri to climb back in. And Riley Maddox not pitched much at all this year. He's been injured. Finally got cleared. He didn't get anybody out, allows 4 runs on 3 hits and a walk. They bring in Mason Nichols, a guy they're trying to make a closer. Pretty decent here for him. 5 Ks, no walks. 1 hit on 1 run, allows 1 home run there, but it kind of slows the game down. They bring in Jack Doherty to try to close it out, and he goes 1 inning and then is saddled with the loss. Allows 2 runs on 2 hits. Of course, the big 2-run home run there late proved to be the decisive blow. So rather interesting. Again, Missouri takes the first game of the series, and you look at this, how do you plan to piece this thing together? Again, Hunter Elliott done for the year. They should be used to him not being there. And again, you hate that for the young man. You really do. But Paige Chatinier, everybody's favorite Rebel, 0 for 4 on the night. Now hitting 247 on the year. Had a K. Put a couple balls in play. But, it is what it is. It is. All right, let's look at our series this weekend. We had talked a little bit about that on Wednesday. I said I would give you a little more in-depth preview here. Tennessee at Georgia. You got the way Tennessee is swinging it right now. You got to favor Tennessee. I won't be surprised if Georgia doesn't get a game, but we'll take Tennessee to win the series here as they kind of consider their continue their climb up the SEC standings. A sweep here actually would help Mississippi State. If Tennessee could sweep Georgia and hang 3 L's on them, because Georgia, of course, ahead of Mississippi State in the standings, they're 11th, we're 12th. South Carolina at Kentucky. South Carolina nearly got swept last weekend by Auburn. And as somebody close to the Auburn baseball program told me, South Carolina came out in Game 3, and they were not going to be denied. Now, Kentucky scuffled. They lost 4 series in a row. They're still ranked 15th in the country. I still think they're going to make the tournament. And I feel like there'll be a split here. I'd like to see Kentucky win this, but I like South Carolina to win the series 2-1. So Kentucky will probably take a game, and with 2 weekends left, I think Kentucky's in with 13 wins. I think 14 wins. They're absolutely in. Absolutely in. Of course, Ole Miss is at Missouri, and I thought Ole Miss would take this series. I thought they would win with Rivas on the mound, but I thought Rivas would throw tonight. But now you begin to look at this. Does Ole Miss just go in the tank here? This is the easiest series they have left. Granted, it's on the road, but if they lose this series, my word. And of course, the thing about the standings is, Ole Miss, because State holds a tiebreaker, Ole Miss has to not only catch Mississippi State, they have to pass Mississippi State. If they lose this series, season could be over. Could be. I still think that Ole Miss will make a run at this thing. I do. But at this point, having the benefit of having game one go Missouri's way, I think I got to go Missouri to take the series. Florida at A&M, and this is interesting too. A&M, again, they're just kind of a middle-of-the-road team. Florida pitching it exceptionally well. I like Florida to take the series. We'll go 2-1 here. LSU is at Auburn. Give Auburn a lot of credit. They went most of the season without winning an SEC series. They've now won them back-to-back. And I think about the job Butch Thompson's done with the Auburn pitching staff. They do not have a bona fide starter. They've had tons of injuries. Of course, Gonzalez is still out. And yet they found a way to kind of string this thing along. You know, the main thing if you're Auburn, you just got to avoid getting swept. I like LSU to take the series there 2-1. That Auburn part can play offensive at times, and LSU can swing it. But Auburn doesn't have a lot of Sunday pitching. That Sunday game between LSU and Auburn could be a Church League softball quality score. Again, I told you I like Arkansas to take a series against Mississippi State, but I'll be honest with you, I don't have a ton of confidence in that pick, but I also have even less confidence in the Bulldog pitching staff, especially in the bullpen. If you can find a way to win tonight, could be a good Monday. Vanderbilt, of course, is at Alabama. I think Vanderbilt rights a ship, but you never know with the intangibles at Alabama. You know, this team could be playing on a mission. You know, I like Seidel, I like Williamson. They've got some guys that really swing it pretty well. Vanderbilt, probably the best pitching staff in the conference by far. They'll get it figured out. Vanderbilt traditionally responds pretty well after they get hit in the mouth, but you go back and think about, they got swept by Tennessee. They win last weekend, but now all of a sudden Alabama's come out and punched them right square in the mouth. All right, let's look at the standings. Mississippi State still the number 12 seed in the tournament right now because the winning percentage were better than Missouri. Missouri, 273, State 286. So if the tournament started tomorrow, State would be the 12 seed. The tournament doesn't start tomorrow, though. Still got a lot of baseball left to play. Ole Miss now dead last at 5-17. So you think about this, and they on the SEC Network, they're always talking about, Ole Miss may do this. The bottom line is this: they're absolutely run out of games. Absolutely, they got 8 left. They have to be a game better than State, so they have to win 2 more than Mississippi State does down the stretch. And granted, their schedule is much more favorable than ours. We get Arkansas, LSU, and A&M. But let's say State takes 2 out of 3 from Arkansas. All of a sudden, you take 2 out of 3 from them, and Missouri takes 2 out of 3 from Ole Miss. All of a sudden, you pick up a game. Now you're 2 games ahead of Ole Miss with 6 to play. That's interesting to me. Again, Ole Miss has to be a game better than Mississippi State because State owns a tiebreaker. But the fact that we're sweating this thing out and the 2 Mississippi schools are competing for the last spot in Hoover is disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. There's no way you can feel good about that. And like the discussion yesterday, people are like, well, you can't even laugh at Ole Miss because we're struggling so bad. I think we can always laugh at Ole Miss, but I understand what you mean. I can't even enjoy this, right? Because last year, that's what we heard all year is like, ha, 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 look at State win an AFL championship. And the joke could stop right there. They're experiencing the same thing we did last year. For sure. I mean, it's eerie how similar it is. We lose Landon Sims, they lose Hunter Elliott. It just the difference is it took longer to have the surgery. State, obviously, with some more serious injuries, but it's interesting. It is. And so the fact that we're having a scoreboard watch to leak into Hoover is not good. Georgia, 8-13. Again, they're 2 games ahead of Mississippi State. And so if Tennessee, that's 11-10 in the league, can sweep that series, all of a sudden you win the series this weekend, you're a game back at Georgia. So you got a little margin there for sure. And looking at the Georgia schedule here, because I think that maybe that's the mode we should look at. It's let's go try to catch Georgia and not just focus on holding off Ole Miss and Missouri, right? But the Georgia schedule is not great. It's not. Tennessee, then they go to Missouri, and we know how playing up there in Missouri, as Ole Miss found out last night in May, is not the easiest thing. And then they have LSU at home. So you look at Georgia, you say, hey, they should probably win that series at Missouri. I think it's a toss-up at best. but they should lose series Tennessee and LSU. So there's going to be some room for us to have a little upward mobility here down the stretch. We got to win games. It's as simple as that. We have to win games. We control our own destiny to get to Hoover. And like, hey, well, Steve, can we make a regional? Yeah, if we go win the SEC tournament. That's what it's down to. But as long as there's something to cheer for, we're going to cheer for the Bulldogs to win. Not going to give up on this team. Not going to give up on this coaching staff. And it has not been the season we had hoped for, not the season we expected. And again, I give the SEC coaches a lot of credit. They picked us dead last in the West, and we have not done anything to change that perception of the team. But if you're Bulldogs, you got to find a way to win this weekend. You got to find a way. And again, I won't say it's a coin flip, but the fact that we're at home against a beat-up Arkansas team, I can see it happening. I can see it happening. I don't know that it will happen, but I can see it happen. But Vanderbilt, best record in the conference is 16-6, despite last night's loss. South Carolina, 2 games behind them in the win column. Of course, they're going to play one less game because of the LSU deal. Florida 14-7, Kentucky 11-10, Tennessee 11-10, Georgia 8-13, Missouri 6-16. LSU leads the West now, 15-5. Arkansas 14-7. LSU's pulling for us this weekend, but of course LSU controls their own destiny. They don't need us to win, but we could give them a little breathing room for sure. And of course LSU locked in. I would suspect there's nobody in the country probably as comfortable as LSU as far as the top 8 national seed, even though their Sunday pitching has been an adventure. Arkansas 14-7, Alabama 10-12. So everybody in the West outside of Arkansas and LSU, a losing record in conference. Auburn, A&M tied at 9-12. And their State and Ole Miss. It's crazy to think about that. It really is. And there's no point belaboring the point here. We've been over it 1,000 times here. But it's going to be an interesting weekend and could be a big one for State. Again, you need some help here. Again, you need Ole Miss and Missouri to split. And you certainly need Tennessee to win that series. If Tennessee can sweep that series against Georgia. They've won 2 in a row, swept 2 in a row. Certainly capable of doing it. It'll give you some room here to maybe have a little breathing room. Maybe you can begin to kind of catch up here a little bit. But again, unless the Missouri-Ole Miss team only plays 2 games, you're the best you can hope for is to maintain ground with one and put up ground on another. But again, it's just disgusting to me that that's what we're talking about here in the first weekend in May. We're talking about the things we got to do just to make it to Hoover. I don't like it. I know you don't like it, but that's the reality of the situation. I'd love to go to the SEC tournament. And again, anything can happen. You and I both know I don't think State has the pitching to make a run in Hoover. But let's say, let's say you can pick off a series against Arkansas and perhaps A&M. All of a sudden you got double-digit wins. Maybe you still won from LSU. And at least you feel like maybe you've addressed the pitching concern and maybe you're trending in the right direction. I just don't have a lot of confidence in that happening. I don't. Is it possible? Yes. Is it probable? I don't think so. I don't. And maybe you see it a little differently than me. But I want nothing more than this baseball team to do well and to rally here down the stretch. And I've seen some posts and people are like, oh, we're gonna put this thing together and we're gonna rally around the team. At some point, it doesn't matter how bad you want it if you're not good enough to get it, right? There's a lot of times in my life I've wanted some things. I just wasn't talented enough to make it happen. So that's a bitter reality of life at times. So let's just take it game by game. And again, Hagan Smith and Cade Smith going tonight. If Cade can be better, and maybe Nate can give you a couple and you get that game to Nixon, then all of a sudden you think, hey, we got a real chance to take this series. It'd be incredible if we could. It would be. But basically, if you're thinking about a regional, right? You got to win 8. You got to go 8-1 the last 9 games, and I think considering number one our quality of play, but also the quality of the opponents, chances that happen are pretty much non-existent. Yes, there's always a reason you play the games, but this team has done nothing to show that they would be able to put together that kind of run consistency. And I hate to say that as much as I love Mississippi State baseball, but we are playing well beneath the standards of this program and our tradition, and got to figure it out. I do think Lamonis gets another year. I know many of you are rooting against that, because you have lost confidence in him. You don't think he's going to have the ability to turn it around. And I certainly understand that line of thinking. But Lamonis, I do expect him back. I've spoken to some people in the decision-making process that are close to Zach Selman that feel like, yeah, he'll get another year. And maybe we just weren't ready to make a coaching change this year, too. That's part of the thing, too. You got to think about as important as baseball is at Mississippi State. Maybe you thought, hey, halfway through the year, hey, we'll be okay. It's not even on our radar to have to change coaches this year. And then now here we are, and you got a first-year athletic director that I think is going to do a good job for us. But maybe he hadn't had time to put together, shortly. He's not a baseball guy. He's not. And maybe because of the fact you look around here and you begin to realize there's going to be some coaching changes within the league, and you got to think Mississippi State would be the best job available if you did. That said, I don't think you make a change this year. And again, I've had some votes of confidence in that line of thinking. Not necessarily, votes of confidence in Lemonis per se, based on the last 2 years. I mean, everybody understands the mess that we're in. I just don't think we were prepared to make a coaching change this year, and I don't think we're going to make a coaching change this year. And again, I know many of you are thinking, next year's just going to be more of the same. Well, I certainly hope not. I absolutely hope not. But the reality of it is that, as I've shared that on the show before, never in the history of college baseball has a coach been fired 2 years removed from a national championship. It's never happened. And some would say, well, it's the first time for everything. I just don't see it. Now, if something crazy happens, like you remember Joe Moorhead after we won the Egg Bowl, John Cohen had told me, we feel like we're trending in the right direction. And Joe was going to be back for another year. And then some crazy things happened off the field. We had some guys not going to practice, electing not to go, seniors that didn't go to bowl practice. Of course, you had the situation with Willie Gay and Garrett Schrader, and they were both at fault. I know some of our people who tried to vilify Willie Gay. And again, I go back to that. Willie Gay and Garrett Schrader, both overly competitive guys. They kind of had a little dust up. It was over, and then Garrett went back over, and things didn't go well. And they're both at fault. Both at fault. But some of our fans have made this more of a Willie Gay thing. They're wrong. Garrett Schrader was equally, if not even more responsible for the fact that the situation was over. And, of course, Garrett got the worst end of the deal and had to miss a bowl game. But it's like, it's so easy when you're caught up in the big maroon bubble. You start thinking, okay, it's okay, it's okay. Guys, we had 2 of our star players get into a fist fight following a practice, and our starting quarterback had to miss a bowl game. We had a culture problem. And there were some people closely affiliated with Mississippi State football, some people in the building that didn't like it when I did that show, and so we got a culture problem in Mississippi State. And we did. We got better culture now. We do. We'll see how things go. But the fact that happened is inexcusable. I think you go back and look in hindsight, it's a story that we'll tell our kids or our grandkids, and they're not going to believe it. We lived through it, so we believe it. So, barring something crazy like that happening, I think you can feel pretty confident Lemonis will be back next year. When I was in Tennessee, they were asking me, hey, do you think he's back? Yeah, I think he's back. You say, but Steve, what if we lose out? Well, number one, I don't expect that to happen. Then I think Zach would have a decision to make. But I don't think it's going to get to that point. I don't. But again, I wouldn't rule anything out. I'll just tell you, as of today, the expectation is that Chris Lemonis will be the head baseball coach at Mississippi State in 2024. That's the expectation today. If things change, I'll tell you. You go out there and you end up the year last year, there's going to be a lot of people out there, donorship out there that are going to vote with their checkbooks, and they're going to get an audience with Zach Selman, and they're going to say, hey, here's where we are with this. And this is what we need to happen. And there are a lot of people out there that say, hey, well, Selman won't make this decision. I completely disagree with that. Completely. He may have some people he listens to, have some people in his ear. But I don't think this is going to be a situation, where Zach Selman is basically a figurehead. There are a lot of people out there that say those kind of things. I think it's pretty disrespectful, not only to Zach Selman, but to Dr. Markeenum. If Dr. Markeenum has shown you anything, it's that he's going to do what he thinks is best. He's been a great president for us. We all have our detractors, and we all have some people out there that maybe don't always agree with us. But the reality of it is that Mississippi State's going to do what's best for Mississippi State. I think Dr. Markeenum understands that. He understands how important baseball is to this program, this university. But he also understands, too, that Lemonis led us to our first national championship. And so, how long does that grace last? Some people would say it's already run out. I think you give the guy another year, and then it's an easier decision to make one way or another. that's my take on it. You may disagree, and that's okay. I know your heart is in the right place, as is mine. We all love Mississippi State baseball. We want her to be competitive in all fields and courts of play. All right, final segment of the show brought to you, as always, by our friends at Portico. If I was moving to Starkville now, that's where I would move. You would be my neighbor. How much fun would that be? You'd come by, get a cup of sugar, talk sports with me. If I'd open the door, chances are I'd play the guitar really loud. My dogs would bark at you. But nevertheless, we'd be neighbors. We're not going to be. But you could still run into me around town as you become a Starkville resident. Give our friend Brooks Bryan a call at 601-416-8075. Again, that's 601-416-8075. Brooks, of course, former Diamond Dog player that went to Omaha in 97-98. We appreciate his contributions to Mississippi State baseball. And Brooks is always here. I mean, it's like his life kind of centers around, his family, Mississippi State, like many of you. And maybe you want to bring your family up here to Mississippi State and say, you know what, I'll just consolidate my two loves into one, and I'll be a Starkvillian. You can get a 2-bedroom, 2-bath home and go all the way up to a 4-bedroom, 4-bath home, and really anything in between. You need a custom build. They can accommodate you with that. They can. You'll be glad they did. Very easy to get to. Turn off 82 on a 12 light going to campus. Very first right. It's Pat Station Road. Go to the 4-way stop. There's Portico on the right. Next time you're in town, go by and see it for yourself. Make Portico your next move. All right, let's talk a little bit about football. This is a lot of people are transitioning to that. I want to run through some couple things on the schedule here really quick. All right, so, of course, Mississippi State opens up the year with Southeastern Louisiana. That should be a cakewalk, but I'll tell you this, Southeastern was 9-4 last year. The talent differential is just going to be too difficult for them, right? I mean, listen, they lost every game last year that you'd expect them to lose, and they won a couple of games. Maybe they were toss-up games, but the talent differential is going to be much, much different. This is a team that made the FCS playoffs last year. They upset, or maybe it wasn't really an upset, but they beat Idaho, and then they lose to Samford in the second round. So this is a team, obviously a really good FCS team, but State should win this thing absolutely going away. There's really no question about that. I mean, if we're ever going to stress about an FCS team, y'all go ahead and let me off the train. Because there's no reason for that. And listen, yes, I was there when we lost to Maine. Yes, I was. All right, let's look at Missouri. Let's look at Arizona. How in the world did Missouri get in there? Arizona, of course, we went over there last year and we talked about, jumping on that team. And they had a couple of pieces that were kind of interesting. They made a few plays here and there. But the week before they play Mississippi State, they get the tune-up game in Northern Arizona. Of course, should be a bloodbath for the Wildcats too. But I said when we beat them last year, I didn't think they were going to end up being a bowl team, and they weren't. They went 5-7 on the year and 3-6 in the conference, and really didn't show a lot of signs of life down the stretch. Of course, when they get into conference play, they beat a really bad Colorado team, but anybody really with a pulse really kind of got after them. They had a competitive game against USC in Tucson, but by and large, just wasn't a good year. They take care of Arizona State. The final game on Senior Day, kind of feel good about themselves. But, again, that's a game I expect us to win. I don't think it's going to be a lot of issue there. Now, LSU, anytime you say that, we expect a loss, right? I mean, there have been times in the past. I know when they came up here in 2017, we knew we had a good team. We knew they were struggling a little bit. We thought we could get them, and we did. Maybe we had a chance a couple other times to get them. Of course, if we get them in 20. In 19, it's a much different dynamic. But, looking at LSU, obviously they win the SEC West last year. They open up the year in Orlando against Florida State. You remember how crazy that game was last year. And then they get Grambling the week before they come to Starkville. So a Power 5 opponent to open, and then an FCS team. So they ought to be in good shape before they get us. The next week they host Arkansas. So first true road game of the year is going to be here at State. I expect us to lose this game. Can we compete? Yeah, we can. But I think the LSU product on the field this year is going to be even better than it was last year. I think it's going to go to center around Jaden Daniels. That's a guy last year, and I said this on Bo Bounds' show today. I mean, that turned into a backyard football game, right? Daniels just getting third and long, and he would just out-athlete us. But over the course of the season, they figured some things out, of course. Down the stretch, they were as good as anybody, and except Georgia, right? They beat Alabama, obviously, to clinch the West there. But down the stretch defensively, they were a really good team, and Jaden Daniels kind of came into his own. The question is going to be kind of keeping him in the pocket and making him be a quarterback. That can be a real challenge for us. All right, so after 2 games, I got us 2-1. Then we go to South Carolina. Now, South Carolina has Spencer Rattler, a very similar quarterback to Jaden Daniels. I would probably pick Jaden Daniels if I'm picking teams. It's my pick. But the reality of it is Spencer Rattler is a guy that can make you pay, but he also can do some things, sometimes decision-making with the football to keep you in a ball game. South Carolina was better than I expected them to be last year, and down the stretch, I don't know that anybody wanted to play South Carolina, unless maybe Notre Dame. But they end up 8-5 on the year. State finishes with a better record. They go 4-4 in the conference. Of course, had the big win over Clemson. It wasn't a great Clemson team last year. But South Carolina opened up last year with a 1-2 record, losing to Arkansas and Georgia. And you expect losing to Georgia. That Arkansas team at the time was at home and KJ was playing, and so you think, okay, well, here we go. And then they just kind of find something there. They beat Kentucky and Lexington to kind of turn their season around. Then they get A&M. It was terrible last year. And then they find a way to lose to Missouri. So really up and down. They beat Vanderbilt, lose to Florida, and then they pull out all the stops and beat Tennessee and Clemson at the end of the year. And I really thought that would be I thought both of those games would be losses. So give Shane Beamer and those guys a lot of credit. Then they lose against Notre Dame in the bowl game. But Shane Beamer had a schedule. This is a true toss-up game for us. They do have some significant losses, as do we. This is one, again, traditionally the toss-up game favors the home team. We got to find a way to go win that game. To me, this is the swing game and really the difference between a good year and a great year. It's this South Carolina game. You cannot afford to be 2-3 after the first 5 because after South Carolina, we're going to host Alabama, and that's going to be a loss. I mean, until somebody proves otherwise, that game is just going to come up on the schedule, and every year we're going to assume it's a loss. I guess back in 2017 we thought we had a real chance to take the game, and we did. We blew it. But looking at Alabama's schedule, they're always going to be ready to go, right? They host Ole Miss the week before they come to Starkville, and then they have the road trip to College Station the week after us. So you like to say, hey, this is a sandwich game. It's not. I think Ole Miss is going to be a decent team, but it's not like it's going to be, lanes coming up there. They're going to get all up. I mean, a lot of that is faded. Get your popcorn ready. So we kind of sandwiched in there with some SEC games, but I just don't think it's going to make a lot of difference. But what's interesting, though, is Alabama begins the season playing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 consecutive weeks. 8. So we get them, kind of in the middle of that. But, again, it's not like it's a trap game for Alabama or any stretch like that. I don't think anybody sees it that way. All right, so 5 games in, I got us 3-2. I think we'll find a way to win at South Carolina. And, of course, we can't go up there and turn the ball over. But, I think Spencer Rattler can help us if we'll let him. Then we get Western Michigan. Western Michigan, obviously, that's a team we ought to be able to handle just on talent alone. I mean, the fact they got to come down here and play, interesting, right? Give them some credit, too. Non-conference. They're going to play Syracuse and Iowa. And then Toledo. Then Ball State, they get into conference play, and then they come down here in the middle of conference play. So this is a team that will probably show up no better than 2-2, possibly 1-3. And again, a team, last year that, I guess at times was decent, but they ended up with a 5-7 record. So it's a losing team coming in with a losing record. So it ought to be a game that we can handle. And again, we shouldn't be sweating non-conference games like that. So, of course, I got that game as a dub, and then we go to Arkansas. Now, we have had some great success against Arkansas. We've won 8 of the last 11. Now, to hear their fans talk, you would think that, we're in a different league. Like they look at us like a Conference USA team or something. And forget the fact that we've won 8 of the last 11 and could probably have won 10 of the last 11, right? Last time we got to Fayetteville, we missed 3 field goals and ended up losing by 3. This Arkansas schedule is interesting, too. and we start looking at how these things play out. Now, Arkansas has a bye week after our game. However, they're going to play 3 or 4 on the road before we get there. So you open up Western Carolina. That's a dub. Kent State, W. They get BYU in Fayetteville. That was a tough game last year. I liked Arkansas to win. They did win. I got them winning this one too. Then they go to LSU. That's a loss. Then they go play A&M in Arlington. That's a toss-up. Then back-to-back road games at Ole Miss, at Alabama, and then they host us. By date, then they play at Florida. And so I just wonder, what shape is Arkansas going to be in after we see them, after playing 4 consecutive SEC games and 2 on the road? I like where we fall on their schedule. And again, it's a toss-up game, and I think, again, by and large, you look at how these games have played out the last few years, they've been very competitive games. And I like us to go up there and win. And I tweeted it out, and Arkansas fans have saved it, want to shove it back in my face. That's fine. I'm confident that State should be able to go up there and win. And I think, of course, it's just my opinion. It doesn't count for a whole lot, but I think State would have won last year even if KJ played. I do. All right, then we go to Auburn. Now, you never know what's going to happen with Auburn, but I'll tell you this, they don't have a quarterback. I know Robbie had a good spring. It'll be interesting how they use him, but at some point, the running quarterback thing doesn't work in the SEC. Not long term. You've got to be able to throw the football and keep people honest. You have to. And I think this is going to be a year of transition, not to say that Hugh Freeze won't be successful at Auburn, but it's interesting. Now, when I look at their schedule, again, I kind of like where we fall on the schedule. And not because of the fact that they play Vanderbilt the week after us, right? They should. And they got to go on the road. And Vanderbilt, I think, will be a better team. Not that the talent differential would favor Vanderbilt. But in the weeks prior, you start looking at this thing. Okay, so yeah, UMass, that's a dub. Then they got to go to Cal. You got to go all the way across the country to play a Power 5 team. And, listen, Cal hadn't been world beaters, but that's a game you might drop. And then you got Samford, you should win that one. Then you got to go to College Station. Then you got Georgia. Then you go to LSU. Then you welcome Ole Miss in. And then Mississippi State comes in. So what shape are they going to be in at that point? Again, I think because of the emotional component of playing Ole Miss, I think that's something that's big. And 2 weeks before, you play a very physical LSU team. So, again, I kind of like where we fit. And, I expect to go win the ball game. It's a toss-up game. But, I think when you don't have a quarterback, and we've been there, let's not look at, the helmet stickers here. Let's look at the fact that Auburn maybe is not as talented as they have been. They went out and hit the portal hard. There's a reason for that. They had some players that were kind of worn down after all the Harsin stuff, right? I mean, that's part of the deal. All right, and so that next week we host Kentucky, and we mentioned Kentucky. On yesterday I made this comment. Kentucky has not won in Starkville since Sylvester Croom's final year. Maybe you knew that, maybe you didn't. It hasn't been a good road series for us in recent years, and most of that has been self-inflicted. Give them some credit last year for kind of shortening the game on us. But offensively, we did nothing in that ball game. Dylan Johnson got hurt. We couldn't run the football. We couldn't throw the football. Even with that, I mean, what was it, 10-6? We had a chance there late, and we give up a big drive. The defense couldn't get off the field because the offense just simply couldn't sustain drives. And give the Kentucky defense for showing up. We didn't play well. They were a part of that. But when I think about this team coming to Starkville, for some reason, we have been able to handle them pretty good here. Now, this is one of those deals, too, where I think this is the perfect time for us to host Kentucky. Matter of fact, if I had to pick a spot on their schedule, this is where I'd play them. They're going to host Tennessee the week before they play us. The week after us, they host Alabama. So very physical Tennessee team, and we're kind of trapped in the middle there with that road game in the SEC. Not just to mention the fact that State has typically won that game at home, but I like where we're positioned in the schedule. Of course, Kentucky ought to get off to a 3-0 start, possibly 4-0 start. They should be 4-0 when they host Florida. And who knows how that game goes, And so they could, let's say they get Florida. Then all of a sudden, does game day go to Athens to see Kentucky and Georgia play? I don't know. And then they get Missouri. So they'll be a winning team when they come through there. But I love how we're placed on the schedule. I don't know that it could be any better. Our Texas A&M, that's our next game on November the 11th. We've had some success against them, as everybody knows. We have played well at their place. Dak Prescott nearly pulled off a win down there. If we could make a couple special teams tackles, you probably win that game in Johnny Manziel's final home game at Kyle Field. But we didn't, right? Now, of course, A&M last year, the only team in the West that wasn't bowl eligible, and of course they pull out that late win to beat LSU. Pretty crazy, right? They finished the year 5-7. And you're looking at this year's schedule, this is a Group 2 at A&M. You got to wonder, the Wolves are out. They've got to have a much better year. Petrino coming in is huge. They open up, obviously, against New Mexico. That's a dub. They go to Miami. That'll be interesting. Louisiana Monroe, that's a dub. Auburn comes to Kyle Field. Toss-ups typically favor the team that is at home. Not to mention, I think, the fact that Jimbo and I have been around a little bit longer is helpful. Then they get Arkansas, of course, in Arlington. And then it's Alabama, Tennessee, South Carolina, Ole Miss, and then we go in. And so we're later in the schedule, and you got to wonder. This is the thing that I think about here. Of course, I'd love to play them, in between Alabama and Tennessee. What's this team's record going to be by the time we get there? What's their psyche going to look like? I mean, this could be a team right now. I mean, the rumors around Jimbo Fisher's future will be swirling at that point. There's no question about it. It's absolute. If the season goes how we expect it to go for A&M, we should be playing for something pretty good, playing for the Florida Bowl game, and they're going to be battling for their jobs. And so you got to wonder, what's that team going to look like by the time we get there? All right, Southern Miss, of course, kind of a questionable, to be honest with you. Playing them the week before the Egg Bowl, I don't know, we'll see how things play out. But, Will Hall and those guys down there, they will have them ready to play. There's no question about it. Now, are they going to have the talent? No. But they're going to have the motivation. This Southern Miss team went 7-6 last year. They win the Lending Tree Bowl, 38-24, to finish the year with a winning record. And, of course, that win at the end of the year to get bowl eligible against Louisiana Monroe snapped a 3-game losing streak. But Southern Miss schedule, again, I expect them to be decent. They're going to be a good team, especially in their league. But they have been kind of aggressive on the scheduling aspect of things. They open up at Alcorn. They go to Florida State. And who knows what Florida State's going to look like. But, non-conference-wise, give them some credit. They go on the road. That Louisiana-Lafayette game is 2 weeks before us, but a very significant game in their league. And so we'll see how things go. But, now Southern Miss has 2 weeks to prepare, for your Bulldogs. And I expect to win the game, but I'll tell you, I don't like the way that one sets up. So it may prove to be a little closer than we want it to be, right? So finally, of course, we end up the Egg Bowl in Stark Vegas. You may not know this, and maybe I'm breaking some news here for you, but Mississippi State and Ole Miss ended the year with the regular season with the same record. And, of course, a lot of people were talking Ole Miss is going to make the playoffs last year. Well, they didn't. They didn't finish in the top 20, didn't win their bowl game, but finished the year on an 8-5 record with a 4-game losing streak. And they will come into Starkville, of course, looking to get the egg back. And so their schedule, you look at it, Mercer, that's a dub. They go to Tulane, that could be interesting. But I don't know, you expect Ole Miss to be able to out-talent those guys. Georgia Tech comes to Oxford. Last year that game really wasn't competitive. The last hurrah of Jeff Collins, you think Ole Miss could get that one, be 3-0 going to Alabama. That's a loss. OSU coming to Ole Miss, that's a loss. Arkansas going to Oxford, that's a toss-up. Then they got to go to Auburn. Could be a really emotional week for Auburn and Hugh Freeze. You know those players are going to get up. They're going to see it as a rivalry game just because of what it means to their coach. And then one of the greatest rivalries in the history of sport, Ole Miss and Vanderbilt. They'll play that game, and then they host A&M. They go to Georgia on the 11th, and then they get Louisiana Monroe on Saturday, and then get us on the short week. And of course, that game being played in Oxford, that was a big advantage. Ole Miss had to go play a night game in Fayetteville that wasn't good, and then we were at home and got to get into bed early. Right, much different scenario this year. I suspect if Lane Kiffin and those guys can play that game, 9 in the morning, they would. And we got to play Southern Miss. I suspect that Southern Miss will give us a much, much bigger fight than Louisiana Monroe. So just something to look at. But again, I expect to win the game. But yeah, so there's a lot of people. I'm a lot more optimistic about this team, I think. And I think there's some people out there, it's like we're scared to believe, so we're finding all these reasons. Oh, well, Steve, we're changing the offense. We absolutely are. Absolutely are. That is a concern. But we get a couple weeks to kind of ramp up before we go play anybody of any significance to kind of filter some things out. And if you don't think we're going to be vanilla in the early going, you're kind of kidding yourself. But this team, I think, by and large, is going to win because of experience on offense. Even though the play calling is different, you have a veteran signal caller in Will Rogers. You have 4 starters back on the offensive line. I think defensively we're going to be really good. It's okay to expect a big year. Now, are we going to win the West? No, we're not. Are we going to win 10? Probably not. It's possible, but probably not. Because you're going to start out 3-2, and the chances of you running out the rest of the schedule, winning out, I don't know if that's feasible, right? Could we go 9-3? Yeah, we could. But these people that are saying 6-6, 7-5, I just don't see it. Barring a major injury, there's no reason to expect us to be a Liberty Bowl team. Just shouldn't be. But that's how I see it. And, of course, we'll be transitioning a whole lot more into football here in the weeks to come. But we'll wrap up some college baseball. Look forward to seeing everybody out at Duty Noble Field tonight. And hopefully the Bulldogs can find a way to win a game or two this weekend. We need 2. We need 3. But that's a little bit ambitious, don't you think? But again, this is an Arkansas team. It's really beat up. So don't be surprised if you look up and maybe things are going the Bulldogs' way. If you hadn't done so, go to dogpilebook.com, and you get most of my sports books there. Dogpile, Alpha Dogs, and Flim Flam are there. You get Bloomsville Oleander for a limited time now. We're about to take that off the market. You can get that at Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, BooksAMillion.com, and that'll be that. We'll be done with that. Stark Villains gear always available at StarkVillains.com. But until next time, let's all live our lives in a way we make more friends than enemies, and people can see a difference in the way we live.